into the next month, which is all about the image. Um, so we're working with home, how it feels, and then we move into home, how it seems to be. Right? What image do you hold of your place in the world? And so there are just two quick concepts that I want to get down on video and want to sort of try to articulate them for you this way. And I'll also be leading you through exercises and maybe some writing about this as well. So, the simplest thing I can say is we have a ground of being, and all the meditation practices that people all over the world have been doing for thousands of years are designed, including contemplative prayer, including davening that we see in some of the uh, cultures like Judaism and Islam, things that come out of the Middle East where we daven, we bend and rock as we pray. Um, that all the Native American traditions are all designed, these meditative, contemplative, inward turning practices are designed to give us the embodied sense of connection with a ground of being that is steady and certain and solid and permanent in a world of change. So, one of the first things we do in our work is we do the centering prayer, the breath toward the center and the exhaling from the center. We do that in order to find in the body that kind of compass that orients you in space in the world. Um, and so all cultures, all traditions do this with the sense that the human being needs to know where the human being is, right? So we need to find our place. Where do we feel at home in the world? So that's the first level, connecting with that ground of being, whether you believe in God or just planet Earth, like whether you're just connecting with nature, with the soil under your feet, with your own body. So there's kind of, let's use this language, an embodied sense of being grounded on something. What are we grounding to? The ground of the planet, the solid core of planet Earth, the ground of our faith in something, the ground of our ancestry, our traditions, our culture. These are all different kinds of ground that we align to, that we stand in. Another grounding that every human being needs to make is a grounding with um, an identity, with a sense of who you are, right? So I think of it as the ground, the essential ground of being, right? Um, the unspoken, eternal, all that isness that holds us all and supports us all and nourishes and nurtures and responds. So when we get a sense of that groundedness, um, and we learn to ground into that, we feel a little safer in the world, right? The next question we come to in our work is, I just said a sentence, we feel safer, I feel safer. Who is that who feels safer, right? So what are the conditions that make that person feel safe? That's that groundedness, right? And then that I, that sense of I begins to, we begin to notice, oh, I have this idea of a self. And what does that self look like in my mind's eye? What's the image of self that I have? And an example I can give you is when the boss comes up and tells you, I have some work for you to do. Do you feel smaller than the boss, or same size, or bigger than the boss? Is there a big small relationship that you have in your image of self, right? Is there a too big, too much sense of self in the world? Am I too loud, too much for people? Do I overwhelm people? Am I always shrinking myself down? If that's a feeling that you have, then you have and sort of built into your image of self, the picture of yourself in the world is too much. So, what might that look like if you close your eyes and you imagine what is someone who's too big, too much, too loud look like? What does someone who's too small, too young, too powerless look like in an image, right? So, we work from these two levels in the beginning. Ground of being, what do we ground to? Second level, who's grounding to that? And then a third level is where are you? Where is that grounding happening? What world am I in? And this is a concept that I'm going to try to articulate really fast or clearly but quickly for you right now. And then later, when we get to the third month, the third module of the work, um, it'll become maybe more clear still. Um, and that's this: we ground, then we have a sense of who we are, some identity questions, right? Who am I as I ground? And then where am I as I ground? And so there's sort of a fundamental question that I want you to consider as we come into this work with identity, with safety, with home, sense of place in the world. And it's this: what world is this? And the way that I sort of, the, the entryway into this conversation might be I can either ground to a world that's at war, that is attack in an attack mode all the time, that's everyone's out to get them, everyone else. It's every man for him or herself. Um, a world of competition and scarcity. That I call that the world of fear and the world of condemnation. Right? So everything's an enemy, everything is potentially dangerous. I'm not safe here, right? Or we can ground to the world of benevolent generosity, a world of a natural world that every time I inhale, there's breath there for me. And that comes from somewhere. That comes from a world that wants me to breathe and be alive, right? And that same world, which I call the world of love, benevolent generosity, the world of um, light, love, and life force, right, that sustains us all, that's fundamentally different in its qualities than the world of fear and competition and scarcity, right, and every man or woman for themselves. So I want you to just have a sense of when I take this action, when I ground into who I am, what world are my feet in, right? So, and one of the ways you can think about this is when I do my social justice work, right? Am I standing in my sense that the world could be better because I live in from a foundation, a grounded foundation in a world of love and support and benevolent generosity? Or am I doing my social justice work from a place of fear, competition, scarcity? I better protect the children, right? So these are two separate worlds. So you can protect the children out of your own benevolent generosity, your own inborn impulse to love and nurture and take care. And when you're doing that, when you're coming from that kind of love, you're standing grounded in a principle, kind of a grandmother mother principle of um, I protect the children. I protect life. I protect with my boundless, bounteous love. I protect what I love. That's fundamentally different from um, locking all the doors and windows, hiding in your house because at any moment someone scary may walk down the block and threaten you, right? And we need to have this conversation when we talk about um, violence of police against Black men and women. We need to have this conversation. We have to say, what world is this police officer standing in when he or she shoots this young Black person without cause? What world, what do they actually think is happening, and why? Why is the police officer standing in a different world than the person who is being called out of their car and facing the end of their life? Why is a young Black person just driving to his girlfriend's house or driving to meet a friend and suddenly involved in a war? What world? He's in one world and the police officer's in a different world. How do we address that sort of social issue without the understanding that these two people meeting in this encounter are standing in two different worlds? And how do we illuminate that problem without creating more violence? So that's just a really clear example of how it matters what world you're in, right? Um, as you have an encounter with anything or anyone throughout your day, you can have an encounter with your own computer or your own cell phone and believe that everything's against you. You can't make this app work. You can't, nothing's responding the way it's supposed to. You can be inside the world of everything's against me, everything's hard, or you can be inside the world of I can figure this out. See the difference? I can figure this out because this technology was designed to help me. And this company that made this technology is eager to support me as I use it. So you have these different ways of meeting the world. So I just want those three groundings to become part of our conversation. And quick review: grounding to a world that is under my feet. This is a conversation of that first grounding, right? The second layer of grounding: what identity am I grounded to? You, another word you could say is what identity, what sense of self am I bonded to, right? And where did that bonding happen? And in the ways that it's not the identity that I want, how can I change that? Where is the where's the wiggle room, right? Um, how can I make changes so that the identity, the self that I see when I look inside my own head, is the self that I want to be when I am out in the world presenting to the world? And then what is that world that I'm presenting to? Is it a world of judges, of people who are sort of gatekeepers trying to keep me out? Or is it a world of welcome and support? And where does that idea come from? And how do I shift it? Even inside of the reality that there are gatekeepers and there are social constructs right now that we're all inside of that do limit opportunity for certain people and increase it for others and favor others, right? So we don't want to deny what's real. We want to look at the system and say that system is built on a certain worldview. It's standing in, and any system that limits for one and favors the other is standing in the world of fear. How do I know that? It has scarcity built into it. It has fear built into it. If you get ahead, I have to go down by law. If there's only enough for one of us, then we're competing again, right? If there's enough for all, you can rise and I can rise and everybody can rise together. So we'll be talking about all of this, and I welcome your response to